So in the first part of this workshop, we're going to first be introducing the NSF Program Officers who are participating. We'll give an overview of the Biological Sciences Directorate. We'll talk about how to find funding opportunities, and we'll talk about how to craft a research proposal that effectively communicates your science. To start with, I'm going to just go around and have the program officers that are going to be involved in this introduce themselves. And I'm just going to go in the order that they're listed on my screen. Well, actually, let's start with Bill Lawson.
Hello, everybody. I'm Bill Lawson. I'm a program assistant with the Division of Environmental Biology here at the NSF.
And Amanda Ingram.
Hi, I'm Amanda. I'm a program officer in the Systematics and Biodiversity Science Cluster of the Division of Environmental Biology.
And Chris.
Hi everyone, I'm Chris Balakrishnan. I'm a rotating program officer in the Evolutionary Processes Cluster.
And Jody.
Hello everyone, my name's Jody Jawar. I'm a program director in the Behavioral Systems Cluster in the Division of Integrative Organismal Systems.
And Sam.
Hi, I'm Sam Shiner. I'm a permanent program officer, also Evolutionary Processes.
Oh, did I miss Dave?
Yes.
I'm here.
Dave.
Hi, I'm Dave Cannatella. I'm a rotating program officer in Systematics and Biodiversity Science within the Division of Environmental Biology.
Did I miss anybody still? The problem is they're listed.
That's all of us.
I'm trying to go in order, but the order keeps jumping around. Okay, so Callie already talked about questions, so I'm just going to jump right into this. So the Biological Sciences Directorate is one of 7 research directorates at NSF. And our mission is to enable funding of discoveries in life sciences, to push forward the frontiers of US science and engineering research, to drive discovery and innovation. 69% of academic basic research in biology is funded by the National Science Foundation, including the Biology Directorate. So BIO, like the rest of NSF, supports basic research to enable discoveries that ultimately achieve significant downstream impacts through partnerships and international collaboration. BIO-supported research sheds light on the principles and mechanisms governing life at all scales and complexities, from individual biological molecules all the way up to whole ecosystems. A commitment to integrate research and education, broaden participation, and promote international partnerships is integral to all activities across the Directorate. BIO's international portfolio includes collaborations in countries around the world. These international collaborations are essential to our work, enabling us to support studies that must be performed at specific sites in the field and foster collaborations that leverage the combined skill sets of scientists both in the United States and abroad that share an interest in common problems. So specifically, BIO's mission is to enable discoveries for understanding life, advance the frontiers of biological knowledge across all scales and levels of biological complexity, increase our understanding of complex systems, and provide a theoretical basis for original research in many other scientific disciplines. The Directorate is divided into 4 divisions, each of which enables life sciences research through a variety of activities, including awarding research grants, providing training fellowships, and supporting mid to large scale research infrastructure and centers. So those divisions are Molecular and Cellular Biosciences, or MCB, Integrative Organismal Systems, and we actually do have a program officer here today from iOS, that's Jody. I believe the rest of us are from the Division of Environmental Biology, or DEB, and then the 4th division is the Division of Biological Infrastructure, or DBI. So even though we're organized into these divisions, we do encourage convergent collaborative research that thinks beyond these disciplinary silos to ask key questions in the life sciences that will provide insight into issues of national importance such as food, health, energy, and the environment. So this is just a graphical view of the structure of the Bio Directorate. Each of the Each of the divisions is actually organized into clusters within those divisions. So DEB in particular, I'm going to talk a little bit about. DEB is divided into 4 clusters: evolutionary processes, which is where Sam, Chris, and I are located; ecosystem sciences; systematics and biodiversity science, which is represented today by Amanda and Dave; and population and community ecology. You can easily find contact information for all these program officers at nsf.gov, and you can and should contact us for feedback on proposal ideas, to help figure out which program is the best fit for your proposal, or any questions you might have. And don't be afraid to contact the wrong person, because if you do, we'll just pass you off to whoever we think is the right person to answer your questions. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is a special category proposal within DEB called Bridging Ecology and Evolution, or B. So B supports integrative research and training proposals that aim to understand the dynamic interaction of ecological and evolutionary processes and feedbacks at any temporal or spatial scale. B proposals are encouraged to use novel approaches to address questions that cross conceptual boundaries and integrate ecology and evolution. It's not intended to support projects that fall squarely within the purview of any single DEB cluster. Studies may be empirical, theoretical, or both. The project description of all B proposals must clearly describe how and in what ways the research will advance understanding of the dynamic interactions between ecology and evolution. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jody.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So, as Matt said, I am a program director. I have control. Great. I am a program director over here in Integrative Organismal Systems. And as many of you, develop your research programs through time, you're going to have research that is perfect for the Division of Environmental Biology or for the Division of Integrative Organismal Systems. There are a lot of investigators who cross between our 2 divisions quite regularly. So it's good to hear a little bit about iOS as well. So as the description there says, iOS supports research to understand how organisms develop, function, and behave through interaction among genotypes and between genotypes and environments. And we do have a Dear Colleague letter out that can draw attention to our mechanism that we call Imagine, which is really talking about how organisms are functioning in their environment, how at multiple levels. Environment can be quite broad here, from the cellular level to within the animal to the animal interacting with the outside world, the typical environment that we think of. And we have a lot of several clusters in iOS: behavioral systems, which I am a part of; developmental systems, which is looking at evolution of developmental mechanisms and mechanisms of development in plants and animals; neurosystems, the development and functioning of the nervous system; physiological and structural systems, which is covering physiology, biomechanics in animals, in plants, integrative ecological physiology, and even function, evolution of immune systems and symbiosis. Plant Genome Research Program is focused more on genomic evolution and control in economically important plants. And enabling discovery through genomic tools is a program that facilitates the development of genomic tools for non-model organisms, and then exploration of genotype to environment type questions, or genotype to phenotype to environment type questions using these new tools. Some other opportunities that you'll want to keep in mind as you are, finishing up, is your graduate students and postdocs primarily in the audience. When you are in a faculty position, pre-tenure, assuming that we have a tenure track position here, you can investigate the Faculty Early Career Development Program, or the Career. This is a funding opportunity that facilitates the advancement, the development, the expansion not only of your research program, but also of your educational program that you will have at your university when you are a faculty member. For those of you who are at or who will be at a primarily undergraduate institute, We have the facilitating research at primarily undergraduate institutions, or the RUI or RUI solicitation. These are for faculty who are at primarily undergraduate institutions, and you have to certify through your sponsored research office that you are in fact at a primarily undergraduate institution. This allows you to have the RUI designation at the front of your title. This is good for us because in many cases this helps our reviewers to know that you're at an institution where it's not that you're going to do lesser science, lesser quality science, it may be lesser quantity, however, because at primarily undergraduate institutions, you often see higher teaching loads, no graduate students, or maybe master's students at most in many cases. And so great science is getting done, it's just getting done at a different pace. Also through the RUI solicitation, there is the opportunity for research opportunity awards. This can be either included in a proposal that one is building, or you can work with someone who already has a funded proposal, research proposal, to get an opportunity to do research in their lab. All right, to get more information on topics in iOS, in DEB, and in MCB, for those of you who might be doing work that's applicable to molecular and cellular biology, we have the virtual office hours. These are monthly office hours where we talk about different topics, we talk about funding opportunities. You can log in and ask questions, and we will address those questions for you. The information for what topics and what times and what days, because our 3 divisions have them at different days and times, are all on our blogs that we have for each of our divisions. You can go, you can see, okay, what's the topic for August? Do I want to log on? You can get the log on information, and then we also have summary of questions that were asked afterwards. So a breakdown of the virtual office hour after it is all done. And I believe that brings us to our first question and answer period. And how did I'm going to ask the moderators, how would you like us to handle doing the questions here? Did you want to read some to us, or?
Yeah, so we've gotten a bunch of different questions in the Q&A. There are a couple of questions in the Q&A that I think can be directly typed in the answers to by program officers, but I'm going to pose a couple of general ones now. So one of the big questions that we're seeing asked is what opportunities, funding opportunities from the NSF exist to fund individuals, specifically late-stage PhD students, recent grads, or postdocs, and what restrictions exist for those programs?
So late-stage grad students, there's nothing. There's the GRFP for beginning graduate students, but other than that, there aren't things that you can apply for directly as a grad student. There are things that if you have an advisor and they have an NSF grant, there are some supplements that they can ask for, but nothing that you can apply for. For the postdocs, Bio has a postdoc program that's run out of the Division of Biological Infrastructure. Right now, there are 4 potential categories of postdocs. There's one for broadening participation. Plant Genome has a postdoc program. There's one that's focusing on the use of collections, and then one on rules of life. And if you go to the DBI webpage, you'll be able to download the postdoc solicitation and see those. Did I cover everything? Callie, did I answer the whole question? I lost track.
Yeah, I think so. I just was giving an opportunity in case other program officers wanted to weigh in. Do we have time for one other question?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, we have a number of questions about career grants. So one question was, how can you learn more about career grants? Is there a specific person in like the clusters that we've been discussing here that might be good to reach out to? And how do RUI and career grants differ in their scope?
So I can handle the first part there, and we may need to put this up in the chat. Hopefully we can quickly get a link to the career website. So career, which is an NSF-wide program, has a website on its own website on the NSF site that has the solicitation link to it, and it also has a list of people who are the representatives for each of the directorates. So I can go ahead and try and get that and put that into the chat real fast. If we had another, or someone might have already done that for me, if someone else would like to take a stab at the difference between the RUI and the career, which is pretty robust.
I'll be talking next, so I can go ahead and try to answer that. So the RUI really is just for faculty at primarily undergraduate institutions, as Jody indicated. And you can apply for that at any career stage, whereas the career is really for pre-tenure or equivalent faculty, but at any institution type.
Excellent. We have many questions in the Q&A tab, but if we want to move on, I'm sure we can address some of them later on if needed.
Let's do that.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Let's see if great. So next we want to talk about the types of research that NSF funds, and it's really variable. As Matt mentioned earlier, there are 7 directorates. We suspect that most of you will spend most of your time applying to BIO, the Biological Sciences Directorate, but it's entirely possible that you may have projects that extend into any of these others. If, for example, you want to do some education research, EHR would be a directorate to look at. If you work on paleo stuff or marine questions, geosciences might be the directorate you want to go to. So we encourage you to just check out each of these on the NSF webpage and learn a little bit more about the types of research they support. So speaking of the webpage, if you haven't played with it yet, it might be a good idea to browse through some of the pages on nsf.gov. And it can be a little tough to figure out where to start. So let me give you a couple of pieces of advice. First, this research areas tab that you see on the landing page is a really helpful place to go, as is the funding tab. And I'm going to talk for just a minute about the PAPG, or the Proposal and Award Policies and Procedures Guide. This is not necessarily riveting reading, but it is essential reading because it tells you how to prepare a proposal, and if you're lucky enough to get an award, how to administer it. So I encourage all of you before your first submission to browse through this. You don't have to read it word by word, but there certainly are lots of sections that will give you crucial information for preparing a successful proposal. Now, in terms of where to find funding opportunities, you can go back to that funding page, and there's some links over here that you might want to go to. And you can do a search by keyword, or something I really recommend is sign up for emails that alert you to new funding opportunities. So anytime a new solicitation or Dear Colleague letter is released, those are the ways we communicate what we're interested in to the community. You'll get a little message in your inbox, and it's not overwhelming. So if you haven't subscribed to that, I encourage you to do so. You can also, and we strongly encourage you to do this, take a look at our various program pages. So now we're looking at the webpage for BIO, the Biological Sciences Directorate, and you can find a wealth of information here. So you'll get there by clicking on research areas and then selecting BIO. And we've highlighted here the 4 divisions that we've already introduced to you, where you can find their pages and learn a little bit more about the types of science they support. You can also get staff contact information here. You can do that there or on the individual program pages as you explore. We mention these resources because it really is important that you follow the directions, just like if you were a student completing an assignment, to make sure that your proposal can move forward in the review process. And unfortunately, sometimes people don't follow all the directions and we have to return things without reviewing them, which is a very disappointing process. And the most common reasons for that is that they're not responsive to the PAPG, that guide that I mentioned, or the program announcement or solicitation. Sometimes they don't meet the announced deadline and date and time, and other times they're just not quite appropriate for NSF funding. Maybe it's research that's more under the purview of NIH, for example. So give those a close read before you submit something. And even more importantly, as I believe Matt mentioned, contact your program officer. This really is one of the more fun parts of our job, getting to talk to PIs. And we look forward to hearing from you. I think one of the best ways to reach out to us is to send us an email and say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about X, Y, and Z, and we can set up a Zoom call. If you have a proposal idea that's pretty clear to you, it's really helpful if you produce a 1 or 2 page prospectus outlining your ideas so that we can read that and give it some thought before we have that conversation. You also should get to know your organization's sponsored projects or sponsored research office, assuming you have one. Those of you who end up at smaller institutions may just have an individual, but at larger institutions, you'll have a robust staff to help you figure a lot of this stuff out. Now, a couple of things that I wanted to mention before we start talking about the nitty-gritty of how to prepare a successful proposal. There are some things you should know before you begin developing ideas and certainly before you write. And the first thing has to do with how proposals are evaluated. Every proposal that comes into NSF is going to be judged primarily on 2 key criteria: intellectual merit and broader impacts. So the intellectual merit is really sort of the science-y part of your proposal, where you describe the work you want to do, put it in context of your discipline, describe how your project will make a significant or creative advance in the field. And in order to really convey that information clearly, you need to produce clear hypotheses, describe your activities clearly, and also make sure that your predictions are clear to a reader. I think that's sort of the obvious part that needs to be strong in a proposal. Something that a lot of people struggle to figure out is the other really important review criterion, the broader impacts. So it is essential for research funded by NSF to have broad societal benefits, and those can come in a huge array of shapes and forms. But some things that we specifically encourage under broader impacts are advancing discovery and understanding while promoting education, training, and learning. We also like to broaden participation of underrepresented groups. That's a really important issue in evolutionary biology. We also want to enhance infrastructure for research and education and broadly disseminate findings to enhance scientific and technological understanding. And another little final piece of advice before I pass this back to Jody is, before you write, you need to make sure you find the right program. And that sounds like it should be simple, but as Jody indicated, iOS and DEB have a lot of overlap in terms of our interests. And so having a conversation with a program officer is a great way to figure out if you're headed in the right direction and if your project will fit well and therefore be evaluated fairly and hopefully positively by your reviewers. So do a lot of reading of the NSF website, read solicitations or announcements and program descriptions, and then get feedback from your peers and from program officers. So give us a call or drop us an email. We'll be happy to help. Okay, and now I think it goes back to Jody.
Yes, let's see here. All right. So for the next little bit of time, we're going to be giving you some tips and advice on writing competitive research proposals. That is something that a lot of people are very interested to learn about. They want all the advice they can get because funding research is very important. It's how you are able to get things done. So there's 5 key elements to a successful proposal, and I would say these are key elements that you could talk about in terms of your intellectual merit, the research that you're going to propose, as well as the broader impacts that you will be also proposing. You want to have a great idea. Can be a big giant idea, it can be a more modest idea, but a great idea. Something that is going to be addressing a unique area of science, a missing area of our knowledge base. You want to propose something that is going to be able to fit with your current research expertise and your career stage and your career development plans. You want to make sure that you're including clear strategy, benchmarks for when certain things are considered done, timelines of when things will happen, metrics of success or not success. You want to indicate the availability of resources that you have or that a collaborator has to accomplish your research, and assessment plans. And assessment plans become very important particularly in the realm of broader impacts, because how do you know that your broader impacts are having an impact? Now, there are many parts to a NSF proposal. We've already, I believe, had the proposal and award policies and procedures guide, the PAPPG mentioned. Current one is 20-1. We typically put out a new one every year. And in the PAPPG are descriptions, directions, guidance for the proposal preparation, but then also the post-award management. And you can see descriptions for all of the parts that are listed here. I think my arrow hopefully will show up. All of the parts that are listed here along the side. Some of these we're going to talk about. The ones where you have to do a lot of writing, a lot of work, that reviewers are going to be reading very closely. Other parts of these are pretty self-explanatory. References are references. So we're not going to go through all these bits and pieces. We're going to focus on just a few things here. The project summary, the project description, where you will have your intellectual merit and your broader impacts, as well as any results from prior NSF support, the data management plan, and the postdoctoral mentoring plan. These are all very important parts that we are having our reviewers look over. I'm going to talk briefly about the project summary. The project summary it's not an abstract, it's a distillation. It is one of the first things that reviewers are going to read. Many people look at this project summary to kind of set the stage, give them an idea of what am I going to see in the rest of this document as I am reviewing it. And the project summary, much like the project write-up, you have to walk a very fine line. It has to be informative to other scientists who are doing something very similar to you, who might be the people that you are citing in the work. So they can pick it up and say, yes, clearly the writer of this knows where the important gaps are and knows how to tackle the problems that they are proposing to tackle. But it also has to be understandable by a broader audience who may be in the same broad field, but isn't exactly doing what you are doing. You're speaking to two types of reviewers. Ad hoc reviewers, who are typically people who are doing very similar to what you're doing, and our panel reviewers, who are going to be in the same field, but they may not be doing exactly what you're doing. So I'm a behavioral endocrinologist, behavioral ecologist. In my panel, everybody's going to be a behavioral ecologist, but if you submit a proposal about the hormones of maternal behavior, I'll probably have some behavioral endocrinologists on that panel, but not everybody will be a behavioral endocrinologist. So you got to be able to, but they'll know about hormones and behavior. So you got to be able to speak to two types of reviewers here. And in your project summary, you're going to have an overview of the work. What's your overarching hypothesis? What are you planning to do here? What gaps in current knowledge exist? And then very concise statements about methods and aims, a statement about intellectual merit, how are you advancing knowledge in your field, and then a statement about your broader impacts, all in a page. Now, the project summary it can be a difficult thing to write. It can definitely be a difficult thing to know when to write. So a lot of people will either be writing the project summary first. Some people write it alongside the rest of the project write-up, and some people wait to the end. It could be good to think about working on this at all stages. It can help you with honing your goals down, making those concise statements, thinking about the elevator speech, in essence, the written elevator speech. It can also be the version that you use to initiate that important contact with a program officer. You can email them. You can send them this one page and say, here's what I'm working on. Is this a fit for your cluster? Can we have a discussion about this? You should always be prepared to be flexible about how you've written your project summary, how you've written the entire project write-up, as you get feedback from program directors, from collaborators, from coworkers. So your project summary is going to have this overarching hypothesis of your project. It's going to give an initial vision of specific aims, a clear vision of how your project's going to further understanding of basic fundamental scientific question. It's going to be talking about broader impacts, and this is the first thing that many individuals are going to see. So this is something that you should think about putting some work into before you really get going, morphing it as you are writing your full proposal, and then readdressing this once the full proposal is completely written. And I think with that, I'm handing it over to, I'm not sure who I'm handing it over to start with talking about the project description.
I think that'll be me. Yep.
Okay.
All right. And so as Jody mentioned, we're going to dive into the meat of the proposal. That is the project description component that includes those key components that were previously mentioned: the intellectual merit, the broader impacts, and the results from prior NSF support. So again, to reflect on some of those key things as you're developing your project, does the research address a fundamental or basic question? And this is where you're gonna start to lay the groundwork for your conceptual framework, so you can convey to the reviewers why you're interested in this and kind of what gap in knowledge your work fills. So again, it is critical to place your work in the context of what is done before, but also identify specifically how your work contributes new knowledge in areas that are yet unexplored or underexplored. And so how does your research move the field forward? We had a question in the chat about preliminary data, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, but one of the things you will be evaluated on is whether your preliminary data support your hypotheses or justify the rationale. So often we see preliminary data proposals, usually, or some of the time unpublished data, but it can also come in the form of recent publications that really build the case for asking the questions that you wish to ask. And really, through all this, what you're trying to convey to your audience is what is it that you plan to do, and sort of clarity in taking your readers through all of these questions and answering all of these questions for your readers is what brings you to a successful project description. So that introduction, again, is the goal is to convince the reviewer of the importance and the impact of the study. It provides your overarching hypothesis and aims. So you often see specific aims highlighted, 2 or 3 or 4 of those aims is often what we see, and an overarching hypothesis that connects them, potential specific predictions for different experiments. And so, as I mentioned, with preliminary data, it's demonstrating that a phenomenon or pattern exists and is worth doing. Sometimes it can also be used for feasibility. So if you're pushing the boundaries on new technical advances, right, we want you, and you don't have, say, publications that demonstrate the viability of those methods, reviewers often like to see some evidence that you're going to be able to pull these methods off. And as I mentioned earlier, this can be in either published form, or you can present the data right in the context of that of your proposal. Hypotheses should be testable. And seems sort of like obvious perhaps, but sort of the clarity of hypothesis testing is something that often leads a proposal to sink or swim. We'll be able to resolve alternatives and answer the questions that you're really asking. So the results should allow distinction among competing hypotheses. In terms of the research plan, here's where you can drill down a bit into the methods. And so it contains a description of the proposed research activity and a rationale for the approach or choices in methods. Now, clearly different scientists are going to have different favorite methods, and remember, you might be evaluated by someone who differs in opinion with you on what are the best methods to use. And so you don't have to propose to do every different method or your reviewer's favorite method, but justifying your decisions is important. And certainly, I think what often is really helpful is to consider alternatives. Right? If this goes this way, then I will do that. And so you can be, explain your thought process and your decision making for the methods you've chosen and the ones that you will choose based on how your results are turning out. Collaboration is a important part of a lot of the work we fund. And so, if you're branching into an area that you haven't worked in before, sometimes collaborators are beneficial for providing that experience and credential for a new research expertise. And they allow you to take advantage of the infrastructure that your collaborators have. Maybe they have certain methods established in their lab that you don't have. And so it can be advantageous to use collaborators where you have gaps in infrastructure or expertise in your own lab. And so it creates the synergy where these diverse backgrounds lead to creative ideas and solutions. This heading says use them only if you need them. That's not to sort of dissuade collaboration. We fund a lot of collaborative projects, but the collaborations should be strategically chosen to meet the goals and support the proposal that you're doing. Graphics, as we all know, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and so use graphics in your proposals judiciously, but certainly a common problem that we observe is graphics that are either uninterpretable or you literally can't see what's in them. So through all of this, through everything that I've said so far and through everything everyone else has said, presentation is critical. Just like in your conference presentations, you want everything to be readable. You want everything to be easily readable. Think about your reviewers who might be reading 10 or 15 proposals. They have to be able to digest all of the material that you put in front of them without squinting their eyes.
Okay, well, I just want to thank all of the program officers for doing such a great job answering so comprehensively in the Q&A tab. That's fantastic. I think given that you're doing such a fantastic job with that, I'm going to ask questions for folks who might be watching the webinar later and will not be able to see the Q&A tab. I'm just highlighting some more general questions. So one question that I've seen a couple times is, what are the pros and cons of applying for NSF grants as an individual early career researcher, such as a postdoc or a new assistant professor, versus co-writing with a PI or a more established PI?
Well, okay, I'll jump in. So for postdocs, as a postdoc, you can apply for a postdoc research fellowships on your own. Beyond that, it depends on your institution about whether or not they allow postdocs to be either a PI or a co-PI on a proposal. So that you need to ask your sponsor projects office if it's allowed.
Yeah, I can just, I would say that what I said about collaborations holds true for any kinds of collaboration. So if your collaborator is is perhaps more established. That it's not, I wouldn't say that's the most critical thing, but if you're combining expertise in ways that helps you answer the questions, I think that can obviously be advantageous. But that said, you know, my first award was a collaboration with someone who's further along in his career than me, and it was really helpful for me as a learning experience working with someone who'd submitted a lot more proposals than I had. And so in that sense, you know, teaming up with someone who's further along in their career is I think that was part of the question anyway, can be advantageous. I think from the NSF perspective, it's mostly how does the research expertise combine to support the proposed work.
Just throw in one additional point, which is if your institution does not allow you as a postdoc to apply as a PI, in some cases you can do that by becoming research faculty, and different institutions have different requirements for becoming research faculty, but usually research faculty are allowed to be PIs.
Do we have time for another question, or shall we move on?
Why don't we move on?
Okay, so I think I have one more slide before I pass the mic, which I started on already. But in terms of common mistakes, you know, work that has been done before, I think it's you know, it's important to have your head around the literature. Obviously, it's good to look, you know, we publish our funded award abstracts, and it's good to look at what's been funded recently in any of our programs, just to see what type of work we're funded and what stuff is going on. And so all of this also relates to recent advances in the field. Project description is unfocused or vaguely described. Again, you want it to be clear what you're trying to achieve, but don't be too narrowly focused either. And so you want to be addressing a problem that's of general interest. Hypothesis testing, we talked about a bit. Experimental design, again, is worth thinking through carefully as you write your, we've all done this. We've thought in our head that we have an experiment that will perfectly answer the question, but there's gaps in our logic. So it's good to have other people always read your work and think critically about your experiments. And then this last one deals with collaboration. So we don't expect everyone to have access to every piece of equipment or have expertise in everything, but you want to make your team, if that's the case where you have resources or expertise lacking, you want to pull together a team that can support the goals of the project. So with that, I can turn it over to whoever's next.
I'm next up. So do I have the slides yet? Yes. Okay. So I'm going to talk about the broader impacts part of the proposal. And so broader impacts is everything that is not sort of the direct intellectual outcomes of the award. So you could think of it as everything that's not the primary, that's going to be the primary research papers, in a sense, is the broader impacts. We're dealing with societal benefits. The most common is certainly teaching and training, you know, graduate students, undergrads, postdocs, but that can also include outreach to K-12, or it could include outreach to the general public as part of, you know, K to grade teaching. And so all of that is part of broader impacts. We're particularly interested in efforts to broaden participation of underrepresented groups in science and engineering, anything that enhances infrastructure. So for example, that might be the creation of a new database, or creation of, let's say, software that other people are going to use. And so those are sort of the typical kinds of broader impacts that we may see in a proposal. So when developing these broader impacts, so I'll say something about this first bullet, which says make sure activities are integrated with the research. Now, technically, that is not an NSF requirement. The broader impacts actually don't have to have any connection to the research if you read the guidelines closely. But that said, broader impacts activities which are integrated with the research are generally judged to be to have more merit to them. So integrating them is good. Novelty is not a requirement, unlike the research where it has to be novel to some extent, right? There's no point in repeating an experiment that's been done 100 times. For for like educational activities, we're not asking you to reinvent the wheel every time. It's perfectly okay to use tried and true teaching, outreach methodologies. And in fact, it may be a good idea to take advantage of institutional activities that are already in place. In particular, if you're trying to reach individuals from underrepresented groups, or if you're doing K through 12 activities, making use of institutional knowledge and infrastructure is good. If possible, you want to talk about previous success with similar types of activities. So, if you say, well, I'm going to be reaching out to the middle school teachers in the local school district and provide them with teaching materials, knowing that you've worked with teachers before is really useful. Or if not, you better have have teachers actually part of your team. It's perfectly acceptable to include people in the project whose main focus is the broader impacts activities. So this can be things like partners with teaching, outreach, and again, other individuals on campus. Be clear on who your target is for particular activities. And in particular, we're looking for assessment plans. People will say, well, I'm going to do these big outreach activities, but if you have no way of measuring their success, especially, I'm going to do these over a 5-year period, and you're not checking how that's doing, that's generally not going to be viewed very well. And again, this is where as scientists, we're not generally trained for pedagogical assessment. This is where you can reach out to other units on your campus for help. Many universities have whole offices which do, for example, pedagogical assessments. So what's the length of the broader impact section? In typical proposals, it's about 1 to 2 pages. The exception is for career proposals. So careers, which we're not talking about in detail, but they're really about the integration of teaching and research. And for those, the educational component, which is the broader impacts, at least part of the broader impacts there, that section is usually more like 4 or 5 of a total of 15 pages. So it's a much more substantive part of the proposal. And, approach the broader impacts the way you would research. What is the problem you're trying to address? For example, if you're trying to recruit individuals from underrepresented groups, what are your goals? Make sure that that your activities are of reasonable scope. Make sure you describe them in sufficient detail. Now, you don't need lots of detailed methodologies usually, except if you're going to do something sort of out of the ordinary. And just saying, I've been real successful recruiting students in the past, I'm going to keep doing that, that's not enough. Explain how you're really going to do it in the future, and make sure that you've put money in the budget. Don't skimp on money for broader impacts. If you're going to have, for example, teacher workshops, have money to pay those teachers to attend those workshops. You're taking up their professional time. Have money for supplies for the school teachers, or if you're going to do outreach activities, have money for supplies, money for the person who's going to be doing the assessment. Yeah, don't skimp when it comes to the project description, the broader impacts budgeting. And so, well, we're doing the questions a little bit different here. So we'll do these common mistakes, and then again, we'll open it up for any additional questions. So one thing about broader impacts, if you go to the NSF website, you'll see, and in their description of what are broader impacts, it's a fairly long list of activities. We are not asking you to do all of them. You know, a long list that's just a bunch of check boxes is much less convincing than one or two activities that are being done well. You know, make sure that the broader impacts are focused. If you're going to do things like a website or a blog, how are you going to plan on attracting people to that website, right? So what are your plans? And then how are you going to assess whether or not that website is being used, how it's being used, and so forth. And then when it comes to pedagogy, you know, be familiar with current pedagogical models and methods, because if you're not up to date, the reviewers are going to ask you about it. So we have sort of another little break here for potential questions. Where are we, Callie, in terms of anything that you want to summarize?
So I saw a couple of questions about how do interdisciplinary or inter-program proposals get evaluated? How do you decide the primary program to be evaluated under, and how do reviewers get selected? And I just want to highlight that Chris added a great blog post about this topic already into the answer.
Okay. Yeah. Chris, you want to answer it?
Yeah, sure. This is certainly one of the questions I get a lot as a program officer, and probably we all do. I'll start by saying we certainly get a lot of proposals that connect among those branches, those sub parts of NSF that were described earlier. And the most common way probably that we handle these is a process called co-review, in which a proposal comes in and we see that it has natural connections. If we're in DEB, we maybe see natural connections in iOS, and we talk to program officers over there and see if they wish to co-review this with us. And if they are supportive of that, what happens is that proposal is reviewed in two different panels, and then and those two panels summaries are taken into account when making a decision about the proposal. And practically how that can work is that either one of the two programs could decide to fund it, or they could both fund it together, or no one could decide that the saddest of all outcomes, no one decides that they want to fund it. And so that's co-review, and that's what that blog post is about. We'd also, as was highlighted earlier, we have a few mechanisms that are designed to promote integrative biology, and those are rules of life and bridging ecology and evolution. If I forget anything, anyone else can jump in, but so we're explicitly looking for those kinds of projects, and we're certainly used to handling them. But talking to your program officer is also always really helpful in finding the right home.
Great, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Shall we continue on, or should we ask another question?
Why don't we continue? I think Dave is up next.
Yes, I'm up next. So I'm dealing with the last 2 or 3 sections of grant proposals, and first up is the let me get this working here. There we go. Let's see. First up is results from prior support. So this is a part of the 15-page project description, And the intent of it is to demonstrate, if you've had prior NSF support, you want to demonstrate the quality of your work by summarizing publications, basic research findings, etc. This is a particular section where it's particularly useful to look at the PAPG, which gives some specific guidance for preparing this section. The slide says that the section is required for PI and all co-PIs. In other words, anyone whose name is on the cover page who have received prior NSF support. And then it says all awards with an end date in the past 5 years and all current funding. Actually, the most recent version of the PAPG simply says that you could report all of these awards if you wanted, but you can also simply, and it might be better, just to report the award which is most relevant to the project that you are proposing. Now, in the results from prior support, just like in the regular proposal, you need to address the intellectual merit results as well as the broader impacts results. So both of these need to be included in that section. And again, each PI and co-PI on the proposal need to include a section in the project description. So that then is the end of the project description section, and there are several helpful hints here that are listed, and I'm just going to display all of them here and just read through them quickly. So again, keep in mind the big picture. What sort of science does the program to which you're submitting the proposal fund? And it's always a good idea to go back and read the program description, and of course, communicate with your program officer. We like to talk to you. If you can find examples of successful proposals, it'd be good to read them. But NSF also publishes the abstracts of all successful proposals on its website. You can search by topic, and this can give you a really good idea of what your program is funding. Simple things like embedding your figures correctly, look at them in the PDF to make sure they're readable, spell check, write for your audience is of paramount importance. You don't want to write above, don't want to write below, target an audience. Highlight parts of the proposal that will help the reviewers to identify why it's a good proposal, that is the merits of the project. Of course, you want to write accurately, you just want to write well. And one way of writing well is to give the proposal to your colleagues, to your students, to your postdocs to read, get feedback from lots of people, because I would say if a graduate student, one of your graduate students can't really understand what's in the proposal, it probably needs some work. And then of course, after you're finished writing it, look at the solicitation again to make sure that you're still on target. Okay then, so let's move out from the project description to finish up this presentation with a couple of the supplementary documents. And although they are supplementary documents, they are really important. One is the postdoctoral mentoring plan and the second is the data management plan. So training postdocs is a really important way to contribute to the future STEM force. And the mentoring plan should not be taken for granted at all. You want to, it's what will a postdoc gain from coming out of your lab, and how will you actually help their career beyond giving them just advice and experience in research? It's a good idea to go broader. That is, can you say what resources your institution has that would help the postdoc's professional development, including networking opportunities? And it's not a bad idea for a postdoc to have more than one mentor, and if that is the arrangement, you should state those details as well. Even though the postdoc mentoring plan is just a page, if you don't include it and if you forget to include it, your proposal can be returned to you without review. And then last, the data management plan. And again, here the PAPG specifically outlines the information that is needed for this. And note that each directorate really has some specific guidance. And so you should check the PAPG and the NSF website. The bio directorate has specific requirements for what's included in the data management plan. And it is possible that you can find basic templates for data management plans out there on the web that other people have used, but there are, it is important to tailor this to your own research and not just view it as something where you have to fill in the blanks. You have it, although it says data management plan, we also want to know about samples, physical collections, software, any curriculum materials that are produced. So it's really more of a resources management plan. You have to describe the standards that you're using for not only the data, but for the metadata. And if there aren't any standards, you should develop some so that people who get access to your information in a few years can make sense of it. You have to talk about how the data and the products, the resources from your proposal will be shared, taking into account issues of privacy and confidentiality. And you need to, archiving your data needs to be thought of as a long-term investment, not simply we'll put our data in Excel spreadsheets and store them on our lab website. And access has to be permanent. And it's fortunate that nowadays it's easier and easier to provide permanent access to these sorts of resources. Okay, and with that, we can continue to take questions about putting together a competitive proposal.
Great, thank you. One question that I have from the Q&A is about how to reach out to program officers to have conversations to discuss their potential ideas. And I have to say, it's really wonderful to see how kind you've been in this session, and it's really nice to see program officers as humans and not gatekeepers so much. So thank you for that. So the question is, how do you initiate these discussions with program officers, and what does a productive conversation look like, and how far in advance should these conversations occur?
I mean, I think email is usually the best way to reach out, and that may be to reach out and schedule a phone call or a Zoom call. As far as how far ahead of time, I think the sooner the better. And a lot of times what we'll ask you to do, if we don't feel that we can get a really good idea for what you're talking about from a phone conversation from the email, we'll ask you to put together a 1 or 2 page summary of what you're thinking about, and then we'll give feedback on that.
I wanted to just add that NSF, the way things are set up, it can be quite confusing. Sometimes it can be difficult to tell, does my work fit with this cluster in this division? Maybe it's a different cluster. It's a program within a cluster. Make your best guess. And, if you were to contact me for a question that was really more appropriate for the modulation program, the neurosystems cluster, that's not going to be a problem. Nobody's going to get mad at you. Nobody's going to hold it against you. I'll put you in contact with one of the program officers in the neurosystems cluster so that you get the correct advice, the appropriate advice from the cluster that your work could be reviewed in. So if you make a mistake, it's not held against you. Don't be embarrassed. This is kind of a unique system that's not always easy to figure out. Just jump in both feet first, and we'll help you with getting to the right place if you've managed to aim wrong at first.
And if I can chime in, just one more thing. Matt mentioned putting together a 1 or 2 page prospectus. This helps in another way that you may not realize is often if a program officer gets one of these, we will pass it around to other people in our cluster, other program officers, just to get their input. So you may actually be getting feedback from 3 or 4 people, even though you've only contacted 1.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Well, I just want to say thank you so much again, everyone, for sharing all of your thoughts. I also want to say especially thank you so much for responding to these questions in real time in the Q&A. Just want to share with everyone that the questions and the answers from the Q&A panel will be available after this with the names of the participants removed. So don't worry, that critical information will not get lost in the ether. But thank you so much again for participating, program officers, attendees. We really appreciate it. I feel like we've learned a lot from this session, and looking forward to continuing with the NSF.